Hi, it's Carter. I want to talk to you about the Trump show trial. It's over now. The New York show trial is over. The kangaroo court. And just as we expected, a corrupt judge, a rigged system, and a jury selected not from among his peers, but from those who absolutely hated him, and therefore really didn't much listen to a word that was said during the court because they had their minds made up. We want to get him, and they got him. That Banana Republic jury. Let me say that I think this is going to be one of those dates, one of those times, one of those pivotal events that you look back on the rest of your life and say, where were you when Trump got convicted in the kangaroo court? Now, I'm going to go into three reasons why I think it is so important. And I'd like you to consider them. Some of the things I say, I think you're going to readily agree with. Other things, I think there are going to be some people who object very strenuously. There are going to be some people who are offended. And all I can tell you is think it through. Think it through. Because I believe what I'm about to tell you is absolutely correct. And it directly addresses the future of our republic. Okay? It simply does. All right? So I'm not going to do a point-by-point review of the court case, the horrible judgments by the corrupt judge who clearly had it in for Trump, should have recused himself at the beginning when it was disclosed that with every decision he made against Trump, his corrupt little daughter, his vile little left-wing radical daughter, made millions of dollars more for her and her clients like Adam Schiff. Any honest, decent man would have recused himself. In a few minutes, I'll get into why. One of the reasons I believe, two of the reasons why this horrifying, heinous judge did not, and instead ruled against Trump and his attorneys at every turn and supported the most bizarre behavior by the prosecution. But the point-by-point edification of what happened in that 5-week kangaroo court session, Stalinesque show trial is what it was. I'm going to leave to people like John Torley, Dershowitz, Robert Morton, Megyn Kelly. I watched her analysis, about a half-hour analysis a few minutes ago, and it was excellent. Megyn is a darn good attorney. And Mark Levine, as usual, Mark was right on target and very emphatic about what he had to say, and he did a good job. So I'm going to leave that to them. What I want to talk to you about are some salient aspects that have very, very long-range impact on what becomes of you and me in this country that we love, and whether or not we're going to be able to take back America and make America great again. Okay, so let me get started. First, the judge's decision was a total, thorough corruption of jurisprudence. It ended even the last semblance of the rule of law in this country for each of us in the entire world to see. And it was very significant because I want you to think about what has happened to us over the last 4 years in terms of our major respected institutions. And I believe this is the intent of the radical left. I call it the fascist left. And Biden has pushed it along with incredibly efficiency, or I should say those around him, because he clearly is a mumbling, bumbling, stumbling idiot. But he does what they say, and that's all they care about. Over the past 4 years, we have had two of the top institutions that we respected most in America totally dismantled. And it's intentional in the destruction of the America that we loved and the institution of a dictatorship, okay? It won't be called a dictatorship. It will be called, I want you to write this term down, because this is where we are moving and you're actually going to start hearing it. A directed democracy. A directed democracy. A directed democracy, and that's why the left, like Biden, keeps saying democracy, democracy, and that horrible Nancy Pelosi. We have to protect democracy. Well, all of a sudden they started using this term, and they usually capitalize the left-wing mainstream media now when they write about it, because they do as they're directed by government. That's what they are, government propaganda organs now. But when they talk about democracy, they're talking about directed democracy. That's a democracy where, yes, you get to vote, but only for the candidates of their choice. Yes, we have a judicial branch and proceedings, but they know what's best, and they do what's best regardless of what the antiquated rule of law might say. But that no longer applies, because we have to have a direct democracy where those who know best for us, the very wealthy and the ruling elite, those who know best for us, direct us toward what our democracy should be. Kind of like the old Soviet Union. The Constitution called for democracy. They had a directed democracy. It was directed in their courts, in their legislature, and their presidential elections. Everything about it was directed. That's where we are. And to do that, they had to destroy institutions that we once respected, because they needed to make Americans off balance. So now, I'm not going to post this on social media, because the pink-haired, androgynous, tranny leftists will just pull it down. This is only going to be seen by members of the Constitutional Rights Pack. You. The first and it's interesting, because the two institutions that we held way up here, that had to be destroyed, dismantled, disgraced. One was the institution where the men wore white smocks. The other was the institution where the men and women, and I should have said women, and the other, wear black robes, white smocks and black robes. I'm talking about, the medical industry and our judicial system. Think about it. Stop and think. 4 years ago, little Dr. Anthony Fauci began his assault on the medical industry with the hoax, the COVID hoax. We now know it was a total hoax, okay? But it totally corrupted our medical industry, didn't it? It used to be, and Jordan Belfort in his book talks about doctors in white smocks. Whatever they said, you said, that's it. That is a flatus, word from on high. So that had to be destroyed, and Fauci and his colleagues did it, demanding people wear these little thin masks that we know blocked almost nothing, but you have to wear those. You have to wear them, or you're going to die. Stand 6 feet apart. Now you'll notice, think back, and you'll notice the people you were standing 6 feet apart from, you didn't see them sneezing or coughing or having runny noses or watery eyes, did you? It's because it was all a hoax. Well, yeah, there was a winter flu, just like there always had been. But this one they needed to use to dismantle the medical industry, the credibility of the medical industry. Think about it. The total medical industry dove in with both feet, because they made a fortune on the COVID hoax, and on the deadly Fauci shots that were administered, and we're seeing such horrible after effects in so many cases now. A fortune. Fauci was already making $500,000 a year as a useless bureaucrat. I remember he tried to perpetrate the everybody's going to die of AIDS hoax until the AIDS community got together and literally threatened his life if he didn't knock it off, because what he was saying wasn't true. So he redid it for the COVID hoax. Okay? And suddenly, every doctor you went to see, no matter what you had, they had signs on their doors, please do not enter if you are sick. Well, what the hell reason do you think I'm coming to the doctor for? I have a earache. I have a bad stomach. I have a broken arm. The sign's on the door. Please do not enter if you are sick. Yeah. The medical industry jumped in with both feet and made a fortune. But as the Bible tells us, be careful about gaining the whole world and selling your own soul, because where's their credibility now? Just as the left intended, their credibility is destroyed. The men in white smocks. I have Anita down the street here. Recently, they almost killed her with the wrong prescriptions. I had a problem with my upper thigh. I kept going to urgent care and going to urgent care. Finally, one of the doctors said, "Mr. Close, I'm looking at all your records. You've been here 5 times for your leg. You've paid $90 each time. That's $450. Mr. Close, you seem to be a smart man. Hasn't it occurred to you that we have no idea what's wrong with you?" Finally, somebody got honest. Okay? So this whole thing of destroy the institutions Americans respect most succeeded very well, didn't it? None of us really believe that the Fauci and medical industry COVID hoax really was what they told us it was, do we? We know now it wasn't. It was a winter flu. They blew it up. They made a fortune off of it. But they lost their own souls. So the other institution, that's the men in white smocks, men and women in white smocks. What about the men and women in black robes? Gone. We already were highly suspect of them because of the other prosecutions of Trump. And frankly, because we started thinking back that the blacks have been telling us for years we can't get a fair trial. And many of the poor couldn't. I have a good friend who told me the other day, I said, let me tell you something, what they're doing to Trump. He said, several years back, I was arrested because it was some minor crime. He had to have a court-appointed lawyer. He was poor. He said he got there at 9 o'clock for his court appointment, sat there, and all of a sudden, his court-appointed attorney, who had ignored him, walked up to the judge and said, "My client didn't show. I'd like you to put out a bench warrant for him to be arrested and go to jail." He had done something the system didn't like. He said, well, I'm here. I went to handcuffs and out he went. So we already knew some things were happening in our court system. And maybe some of you have had this happen to you. You walk in that court and you say to yourself, I have no power over what this man can say or do. And previously, throughout our history, there were certain rules of law that couldn't be violated. They were all violated. All in this travesty in New York where Trump just got convicted. All of them were violated. The judge should have recused himself. He wouldn't allow witnesses the defense needed. He permitted witnesses who said things that were totally non-germane to the case, but horribly damaging to the reputation of Donald Trump. That the vile porno actress who lied about everything. He permitted a convicted perjurer repeatedly to get on the stand, and then the man perjured himself over and over again, then went on to admit stealing, and the judge didn't caution the jury about what kind of person this was. So he just fed into it. And the lawyers I just mentioned can give you chapter and verse on other things he did. So that was a pivotal moment, just as the Fauci, I think it was March 15th, 2022, 2021, Fauci's infliction of the COVID hoax on the American people. That was a pivotal moment. It destroyed the faith in an industry, the medical industry. This pivotal moment was the final blow to destroy everyone's faith in the judicial system, which is what the left wants. It wants you off balance. It wants you to no longer have faith in anything that once made us great and contributed to our own personal and our collective security. So that's very, very important that these things have some reason happened as the Democrats seized power over the past 4 years. So I want you to think about that. That's the first item. The second item, I want to address this business with the judge because it's very, very key. We can't let the man off the hook just by saying, well, he was corrupt. It goes beyond that. It goes way beyond that. Why was he so corrupt? Of course, to make his daughter money. His daughter made tens of millions of dollars every time he illicitly banged that gavel and ruled against Trump when he should not have, the gag order, the whole 9 yards. But it goes beyond that, and get ready, I'm going to say it. It goes to the man's background, okay? It goes to the man's background. Now, let me preface what I'm going to say with something that's very important, because if you start explaining what I'm telling you, they're going to say, well, he's a xenophobe. He just hates people that aren't white. Not quite. Not quite. My wife of almost 7 years now, who is not part of my life, she is my life, okay? I'd give my life for her. She's Honduran. She's Honduran. And she is not a little Honduran who looks like this. She is an olive skin, big brown-eyed, black-haired Honduran. Okay, so she looks like she just got off the banana boat. Okay, and then I always tell people I am married to the only legal Honduran immigrant in America. So if anyone wants to say xenophobia, you tell them you don't know what you're talking about. Judge Merchan is a Colombian. He's a Colombian. He was born and raised till he was 9 or 10 years old in Colombia. So I want you to think about something. One, his socialization process, because I think his vile behavior on the bench goes beyond the antipathy towards Trump. Oh, that was there. But I think it goes into who he is as a person. And that's why it came so naturally. The angry outburst where he cleared the courtroom because one of the only real defendant, not defendant, but the only person that the defense called to testify, okay, he got angry and screamed and shouted at him and cleared the courtroom. The jurors have never seen such behavior. Well, you probably would see such behavior if you grew up in Colombia. I think you see where I'm going here. I hope you do. I hope you do. And some people say, well, he only lived there till he was 9 years old. What do the social scientists? That's it. I'm glad that they'll bring that up. What do the social scientists tell us about the socialization process, the mental intracranial development process of children? According to the highly respected North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, which is one of the leading institutions studying childhood development, it's between the ages of 1 and 9 that the mindset is implanted. The mindset is implanted in a child's cranium. Their attitudes, their outlook on life is developed between 1 and 9. His was developed in Colombia. Talk about kangaroo courts. The only courts in Colombia are kangaroo courts. It is a banana republic, just as we are, by the way, now, just as he helped make the United States. So for him, his behavior was part and parcel of what he grew up with. During his developmental years, that behavior was instilled in his brain. And then let's think about genetic coding. Genetic coding. I'm going to say it. He was genetically inclined to behave the way he did, to destroy our system of jurisprudence, which is what he did day after day for 5 weeks. And you may say, well, that you can't say just because a person was Colombian that his gene structure, his DNA affected his behavior. I'll give you an example. Can I give you an example? May I? My mother came from Reggio Calabria. Now, some of you are laughing right now. Those of you familiar, my mother wasn't just born in Italy. She had those Italian traits. She was from Reggio Calabria. She was a Calabrese. In Italy, they're known as the hardheads. They're mean, they're tough, which is why my grandfather was the meanest, toughest, nastiest man I ever met in my life. Okay? He was Calabrese. You'd be stunned at how many times people say, in some ways you're kind of like your grandfather. You really have that, you really get angry and really are hard-headed and you really go after those things that you don't like. You think? It's part and parcel of me. It's in my genes, folks. I'm sorry, it's in my genes. Just like the behavior of Merchan, whatever his name is, the corrupt judge in the Trump case, it was in his genes to behave that way. It's all that had ever been instilled in his genetic coding for generations. Still not convinced? Let me give you one more example, then I'll move on to my final point. About 20 years ago, I bought a Doberman Pinscher puppy, Baron. Baron, I have his picture somewhere around here. I don't know where it is. Hold on a second. There it is. Hold on. Now you may notice something about Baron. And you can tell how much I love him. I have his picture frame. He has ears and a tail. I never got him cut off. I thought it was cruel. 130-pound Doberman. I got him as a puppy. I loved him like a son. Okay, I noticed that whenever I would go into a bookstore and buy a book on Dobermans, it could have been called Baron. I taught Baron to act like a human being. But when I would open the back door of our home, Baron would walk out and patrol the perimeter. It's like, I didn't teach him to do that. Baron bit 11 people in 11 years. I definitely did not teach him to do that. Okay? One time, a friend of ours dressed as Santa came to the door, stuck out his hands to shake hands. Baron jumped up and grabbed his arm. I didn't teach him to do that. He was a Doberman. He had genetic coding through the years. Merchan, the corrupt Colombian judge in the Trump case, had genetic coding, plus the socialization that made him the man who put the final touches on the destruction of our system of jurisprudence. We now know we can't trust any of those people in black robes, just like we now have a little trouble trusting the guys in white schmucks the way we once did. Think about it. Just think about it. These things are not accidental. These things are not accidental. Okay? I do not, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe there are people out there who want to destroy this country, and I believe what they did with the COVID hoax and what they did with the total dismantling of our system of jurisprudence, our judicial system, finalizing in the clearly corrupt behavior of this Colombian judge, was all intentional. And I believe, unfortunately, at this point, it has worked. And that brings me to my third point, when we're going to end on a happy note. Happy note. I also believe in the resurrection. Okay? Don't worry, I'm not going to preach at you. You don't have to shout amen, brother, but hopefully you will be blessed, because I believe that just as they now have crucified Trump, he is going to rise up out of this, as someone else with whom we're very familiar did, and sweep the board. Sweep the board. We are going to see massive contributions to Trump, and people like me and probably you, if they thought we were MAGA before, wait till they see, as Al Jolson used to say, you ain't seen nothing yet, okay? You know, let me finish with this point. I don't want to ride my crucifixion analogy into the ground. After the resurrection, in the next 40 days, Jesus multiplied his disciples by about 40. Went from 11, because Judas pulled a Chuck Schumer. He went from 11 to 500 before the ascension. And then since then he hadn't done bad. It's probably in the billions. Okay, probably in the billions. And he told his disciples, go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. And that, I think, much to the dismay of toxic Joe Biden, his lieutenants, his regime, Gestapo, his judges, that Soros appointed for him in order to pull off what they've done. I think what you're going to see is those of us who are Trump's disciples go into all of this nation and multiply, make disciples of thousands, maybe millions, who previously didn't really believe how badly our system had been destroyed. I think that's where we are. That is the good news from the Trump decision. In one of my favorite movies, and I'll close with this, Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington. After the obliteration of the community, he turns and he says, don't worry, essentially, fear not. What we have lost in the fire, we will find in the ashes. Okay? To the left out there is chortling right now. To toxic Joe Biden, we're coming for you. We're going to find it in the ashes. We're going to multiply by a lot more than 40 the number of Trump followers out there, folks. So let's do this thing.